My, male 27, family wants me to break up with my girlfriend, female 22, after how she responded to my brother's prank, male 22. I know the title sounds bad, but I could honestly use some outside perspective since anyone else I ask could be biased towards the situation. I've been dating my girlfriend Lola for about 2 years now, and overall things have been great. My brother Ian has always been pretty weird whenever she comes up or is around though. Ian and I are very close, talking to each other daily, but the conversation will usually change gears right as I start talking about anything Lola related. I thought maybe he was jealous of the time I was spending with her or maybe a little crush on her. Still, whenever we'd get together, he'd make comments about our age gap, poke fun at me for simping, and joke about her sleep disorder. Ian's always enjoyed a good prank, either pranking or being pranked. He loves to laugh, and I genuinely believe that when he goes to prank people, he means it in a way to share the laughter. When he's tried to pull little pranks on Lola though, he does things that he figured out triggers her disorder, like making sudden loud noises, jumping out to scare her, and one time I caught him before he was going to do the shaving cream sleep bit while she was taking a nap in the guest room. I warned him in more detail then that he shouldn't mess with her while she's sleeping, as interrupting her regulated cycles isn't good for her, and at the absolute best, she's the worst kind of cranky when she's woken up. Ian looked like he understood, and I thought that was that. I threw a New Year's Eve party a few days ago and invited Ian and a bunch of mine and Lola's friends. Everyone was having a good time. My watch went off with the alarm that we set up for Lola to take a nap. She went off with a sleepy smile, and I kept partying. A while later, we all heard a scream, followed soon after by cussing and something breaking. I panicked as it was from my room where Lola was, and I ran through, nearly kicking the door down, to find she shoved someone down and was yelling at them. I looked to see who it was and saw a spider mask that I unfortunately recognized as Ian's from years ago.
Wow. What a asshole.
I saw him scrambling to get away, but Lola only stopped when 3 of her friends pushed past me to pull her up and check her before she ultimately passed out in their arms. Ian scrambled off of the floor and ripped the mask off, revealing the work she'd managed to do in the time it took us to react. He started bawling, telling me she was insane and abusive, that he only wanted to make sure she wasn't going to sleep through the ball drop. At this point, everyone started yelling. Ian looked terrified and kept repeating that she was crazy and that I shouldn't be with someone who could do this to her boyfriend's brother. Some of my guys were yelling that if she did it to him, she could do it to me. All of her friends were screaming about how he should know to leave a sleeping girl alone and how it was creepy. Ian ended up calling our mom to tell him that Lola hurt him, and she's furious. Lola's friends ended up carrying her out against my protest, and my friends were nearly split down the middle. I remember standing there while everyone argued, while the ball dropped, my mother calling me for the 10th time, and Lola finally texting me that she needs space to think. Since then, we've lightly texted. She's expressed that she can't shake her fear of what happened, but she still hasn't told me from her side what happened. Ian and my mom are trying to convince me to break up with her and chastising me for not helping or standing up for my brother when he was being assaulted. And demanding an apology for not playing my part as an older brother. Ian has FaceTimed a few other family members, and now my aunt, who paid for both of our colleges and the house my mom and brother live in, and did help me get my apartment, is taking the 3-hour drive to make sure her boys are okay, which is stressing me out even more. On one hand, I know family is family, and I should do what I can to stand up for people who helped raise me and become the person I am. On the other hand, Lola is my girlfriend. I adore her. I love her. I feel like I should be there to protect her. I don't want to push her boundaries, but not talking to her is a different kind of hurt. Ian is convinced that he was doing a well-intentioned prank and was wrongfully punished for wanting to make sure everyone was enjoying them. I don't know if I believe that, but I've known Ian for 22 years. Growing up, we were inseparable. I don't want to doubt him just because love may be blinding me. How do I approach the situation with Lola? How can I convince my family that Lola isn't a threat? She's honestly the most sweet and caring person. She just can't be woken up, and a part of me feels like she was pushed to a breaking point.
I ruined my ex's relationship with her father after she tried to ruin my life. To begin, my ex-girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 years up until this point. 18 months of those have been long distance, and the last 18 months were together in her home country. When I say the last 18 months of those were in her home country, I want to make it clear that in order to be together, I dropped close to everything in my life to move to be with her. That is to say, I left my family, friends, and all of my customs and cultural norms to be together. I did still retain my job, which I worked remotely in her country, so I was able to contribute heavily to bills and rent. The first 6 months of us living together went fairly well. There were some bumps here and there, but it was nice to finally be together. Towards the last 6 months of our relationship, however, she began to get extremely paranoid and insecure. She also went off medication and quit therapy around this time as well. This, coupled with a lot of insecurity due to weight gain and her perceived loss of hotness, made her very insecure. Although I still found her very beautiful and honestly didn't notice much of a difference. The last night I was with her, she demanded to see my phone so she could go through it to verify I wasn't cheating, to which I initially said no because I found it to be an invasion of privacy and no trust between us to have to go through my phone. Eventually, I gave in and let her go through it after she began to throw all of my belongings in the hallway of our flat, screaming at me to leave because I had cheated. When she went through my phone, she of course didn't find anything. However, by that point, she said it was because I had deleted the evidence and kicked me out into the middle of her country. I had nowhere to go, no idea what I was going to do, and eventually just got a room at a shitty hotel and booked a flight the next day to go back to my country as I had work after the weekend was over. She called me a few times to say she wanted things to work out, only to go back on them and say, actually, I'm only saying that so you'll leave me alone. No idea what that was needed, but felt unusually cool. Once I got back to my country, I was horribly depressed and felt absolutely violated and wronged as I literally had done nothing wrong. I was faithful to her our entire relationship. I tried to move on, but still had this feeling of unjustness and being angry that she had me reset my life for her to just then force me to reset it again over a mere suspicion. I decided I needed to level the playing field and get some sort of retribution. So I emailed her father pictures of us together. Nothing sexual, just us taking pictures as a couple. To add context, my ethnic and religious backgrounds and hers are not very agreeable and we are not to date or intermarry. And her father was quite conservative. More to that, she lied to him our entire relationship and said she wasn't seeing anyone or interested in marriage as she was focusing on her career. So, learning that she had, in fact, been in a relationship for 3 years and that he was being lied to, I'm sure was quite the surprise. She then messaged me saying I ruined her father's view of her and their relationship, and I imagine that has not changed. I have heard that the best revenge is success, and I agree. I have so far, I'm still fairly young, achieved my short-term goals, but this has been a nice added bonus, and I do genuinely feel after all she put me through, it was well-deserved. He has a small edit. Seems a few people here think I moved to Saudi or something to be with someone from an oppressive Muslim background. LOL, she is Christian, Lebanese, and lives in the West. No risk of honor killing. Her Baba, I'm sure, is disappointed and embarrassed she dated Al Yahudi, but she's not in danger.
Am I wrong for ending a 20-year marriage because I learned my wife cheated on me while we were dating? My wife, 44 female, and I, 43 male, have been married 20 years. We started dating in high school when I was a junior and she was a senior. We were long distance for her first 2 years of college while I was in high school and did 1 year at community college. Then we went to college in the same city for a year and have lived together since. We got married the summer after I graduated college. Our marriage has been pretty great so far, but I initiated a divorce after I discovered that she was sleeping with multiple other men for the 2 years that we were long distance. Just after Christmas, we got together with a few friends of hers from college to catch up, have dinner, and hang out. We talked about a lot of stuff, and my wife mentioned that we met in high school. Not that we dated, just that we met. Her old college roommate commented that it was crazy that we met in high school, had a few wild years in college, and then ended up together. I played along and commented that I didn't know if my wife was as crazy as I was. The roommate started to tell a story, but my wife cut her off and said she was uncomfortable about it. I sensed something was up. So I said that we actually started dating in high school and were together for my wife's entire time at college. All of my wife's friends got real quiet, and the rest of the dinner was awkward. On the way out, one of her other roommates took me aside and said that I should have an honest conversation about what happened at college. I asked my wife on the way home, and she kind of blew me off. I told her it was important that she was honest with me, and again, she said it wasn't important. When we got home, I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what happened in college. The next day, she came over and admitted to sleeping with several men during her first 2 years at college. She said she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance and she didn't think a high school romance would last. I pressed for more details and she said it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys she introduced me to as friends when I visited her on weekends, and 1 guy she was still in contact with. I told her that I wanted a divorce and would be starting the paperwork as soon as I could, which I did on January 2nd. Her family and most of my family are telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes. I've stood by my belief that cheating on me with multiple men for years is unacceptable no matter when it happened, and the fact that she continued to maintain relationships with these guys right in front of me was an unacceptable amount of disrespect. We have 2 children, but they are 17 and 19, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I feel like I'm going crazy with the number of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. Edit. Holy shit, I'm glad I did this with a throwaway because the response here is unexpected. I obviously can't answer every question or comment, but I wanted to provide some detail for common questions. The reason I posted this is that my wife and a few friends have been saying it's common to sleep with other folks when you're in a long distance relationship, and that I'm kind of the odd one for not sleeping around. I feel like I was being gaslit, but I wanted an outside perspective. We live in a state with a waiting period to finalize a divorce, so it felt like a reasonable idea to get some insight before things are finalized. After these comments, I see a handful of folks saying it's normal to sleep around during a long-distance relationship, but it seems to be a significant minority. We saw each other a couple of weekends a month during the 2-year college period. I lived about 3 hours away from her college, so it was long distance, but not like cross-country. This was not a situation where we went months without seeing each other. The 3 guys I met while she was in college were meetups that happened during parties. The subject of me being a boyfriend didn't really come up, so I honestly don't know if these guys knew anything. The one guy we're still in contact with married a mutual friend from college. This is not some guy she secretly messages on the side. It's somebody we've talked to regularly for years. I've talked to him a few times since I've learned about my wife. He said he didn't know we were dating at the time and has since blocked my wife on social media. Some folks have asked how the roommates didn't realize at our wedding that the timelines didn't work out. The main reason is that my wife and I had a very small ceremony with just close family in Texas, then went back to the East Coast to have a big party with friends. The typical reception/sharing details about how we met stuff didn't really happen, so her roommates didn't realize we started dating before college. It sounds like they thought we only dated for the year we were both in the same city, then moved in together. I was open to therapy or some kind of attempt to save the marriage, but her insistence that this whole thing is common and that I'm the one who's out of line is just too much for me. The only time she showed any remorse or even offered to reconcile was when I started filing paperwork. And the last week, she's gone back to saying she's right and I'm overreacting. This is also why I feel like I'm being gaslit. It seems obvious that this is a major issue, but I've got my wife and others telling me it's normal and I'm overreacting. I'm not getting a paternity test unless my kids want to get one. I don't have any doubts that they are biologically mine, and no test will make them not my kids. I love them more than anything in the world, and my wife's infidelity won't change that, even if one or both of them is not biologically mine. They've been my kids for 19 years, and they will be my kids until I stop breathing. Final edit. Hey all, I've been reading a bunch of the responses, but things are getting crazy and increasingly unhinged, so I probably won't be checking in more. Here are a few more answers to common questions I've seen. We were definitely exclusively dating at the time. First, dating culture was a lot different 20-ish years ago, and exclusive was kind of the default for most people. Second, we had a long and difficult discussion before she left for college about continuing the relationship long distance. She specifically wanted to stay together and even joked about her dad coming after me if I started sleeping around with girls at my school. Finally, at my senior prom, she was not able to attend and was very upset when I proposed going with a platonic female friend of mine. As a result, I ended up skipping my prom and hanging out with her instead. While we never said the word exclusive, I think the above reasons combined with the general relationship before she left are enough to assume exclusivity. Based on some comments here, I followed up with a friend who said I should have an honest conversation. She told me that 10 guys would be on the low end, and that her biggest concern was that there was apparently at least one pregnancy scare that I didn't know about. I honestly don't think that really changes much. It's less about the number for me and more about the fact that she seems incapable of recognizing why this was wrong or why I feel betrayed. Thank you all for the helpful responses, even those who disagree with me. I will still be open to therapy if she's willing, but I honestly feel like it would be more about us being successful co-parents and finding closure than saving our marriage. Update February 5th, 2024, 28 days after the original, right? And 2 days ago. I wanted to provide some updates here as my original post got a lot of traction. My wife and I are seeing a couples counselor and have been to 3 sessions now. Based on what my original post outlined and what we talked about in counseling, I'm still moving forward with the divorce. I believe that counseling was the right move and I appreciate folks for recommending it. I don't think it's going to save our marriage, but it has helped me communicate my feelings, helped my wife understand where I'm coming from, and most importantly, helped us be in a position to work together as co-parents. First, let's talk about the things I learned about the situation in college. After talking to my wife in sessions and texting with two of her roommates, it's clear that her roommates knew something was up in college. They said they thought the situation was weird and likely involved cheating. My wife had told them that we both had some wild times in college and worked it out before we got married, so they never really brought it up. The roommate who pulled me aside recently was uncomfortable with the fact that my wife clearly didn't talk it through with me and wanted me to know. As far as being introduced to guys she slept with, apparently that was not intended. For one of the guys, he ended up dating and then marrying one of our mutual friends from college. This is the guy she was in contact with. In the other situations, she initially blamed me in the counseling session, but has now agreed it was bad. When I went to visit her, she planned to hang out in the room or just hang out together alone. But I wanted to go to a few parties because in high school and community college, I didn't really have parties to go to. She didn't expect me to meet the guys, but they were at the parties and she felt like she didn't really have a choice. I still think this is kind of shitty, but it's not as bad as her intentionally parading me in front of the guys. Most of our discussion in therapy has been talking about why I think it's a big deal and she doesn't. She initially said that none of these guys were in relationships with her and it was mostly one-night stands or FWB, friends with benefits. Since she didn't view them as romantic relationships, she didn't see the big deal. Her words, not mine. My opinion is that we never said that was okay, and she actively prevented me from doing the same. After digging into this across 2 sessions and my wife talking to some friends, she now agrees that it was a breach of our trust and relationship. This is the shared understanding that has helped us talk about this situation more honestly and helped us get from arguing to talking, which is why I'm optimistic about co-parenting. Now, here's why I'm 100% set on divorce. 2 things came up that made me want to leave the marriage. First, about 10 years ago, we went through a really rough patch and had a dead bedroom for about 2 years. She had expressed that our sex life was becoming boring, so I tried to spice things up. Nothing crazy, just role play and Spencer's Gift level toys. Apparently, she had been hung up on some sexual experiences that happened in college that she is not comfortable talking about and wanted me to try them. When I did, it made her feel awkward and guilty. Then it made her think of other men while she was with me. The fact that she's saying these experiences were meaningless, but they're still impacting our marriage tells me they meant more than she wants to say. Second, she admitted that she has been flirting with coworkers on business trips since the pandemic ended. She says she has never slept with anybody, but it has gone as far as going on a date with one of her male coworkers. That was an absolute deal breaker for me. We have told our children that we're getting a divorce. We told them it was due to some bad decisions that we made in college and that we're having trouble moving past. My 19-year-old, who was in college, asked me if I cheated on my wife while she was away at college. My wife got a little shaken up, but admitted to the kids that she's the one who cheated. We have agreed to not share any additional details with the kids. I reinforced that both of us will be there for the kids and that we are in therapy to help make sure we can handle this in the best way for the family. I also told the kids if they wanted to talk to either of us or a therapist about it, I would fully support it. We started talking to a mediator about how to proceed with the divorce, and unless things change, we should be able to have an amicable divorce. We're both financially stable on our own, we have no major debts, and our kids are older, so custody isn't a major issue. This has been a shitty couple of months for me, but I'm doing okay now, and I honestly am grateful that my last post blew up because it both validated some of my feelings, but also motivated me to go to counseling with my wife.
I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted to fight someone's grandma in TJ Maxx yesterday. And I get respect your elders and shit like that. But here's the thing, when you come at me, I don't give a fuck what age you are. You could be a 6-year-old, you could be an 82-year-old woman. I'm still gonna want to fight you. I'm gonna actually fight an old fucking lady, but like I really thought about it. No, I genuinely was like, maybe I should curb stomp a bitch. I'm in TJ Maxx, right? TJ Maxx is my safe place. All day I was like, I'm so excited to go to TJ Maxx. I want to get some home things. Like I'm excited to decorate the new apartment, whatever. I was so fucking happy to be in a TJ Maxx. I'm walking down the aisle with my cart. Good vibes, good vibes. I'm feeling fucking good. Immediately as I turn down the aisle, this old woman is walking towards me. I smile like the good fucking woman that I am. I'm like, she looks at me and goes, she's walking towards me and she's like, I said, okay, fuck you, bitch, fuck you. I obviously didn't say that out loud because I might be fucking crazy, but like, I'm not that crazy. But I was heated. I'm like, you're telling me to move out the fucking way? Also, I wasn't in your way, bitch. Like, she literally just like didn't want me in that aisle. And I was like, when the fuck did you become the Queen Elizabeth of TJ Maxx? Like, I don't remember you being the fucking founder of TJ Maxx, grandma. Like, why don't you move the fuck on? She literally just like did not want me in the aisle with her. I'm like, that's not how it works shopping, grandma. I'm gonna grab my motherfucking candles that I came here for. I'm not getting out of the aisle just because my highness is in the aisle with with me. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Immediately, I roll my eyes. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck did I do to grandma for her not to want me in the aisle with her? Like, that's so, and she's like trying to get me the fuck out of it. I'm like, you're literally looking at candles. Like, same bitch. This is a public place. You know what I just realized? Everybody else is like beefing with these fucking 10-year-olds in Sephora. Nope, not me. I'm trying to fight fucking elderly women in TJ Maxx. Like, that is where I'm at. Like, I'm like, fuck the 10-year-olds in Sephora. I'm here to like check a grandma. And that grandma did that to me though. The first thing that went through my mind is like, if that was my grandmother doing that to somebody like of my age, I would fully be like, yeah, fight the bitch. Like, check my grandma. Who the fuck does she think she is? The Queen Elizabeth, the fucking TJ Maxx in the candle aisle, and nobody else can be in the aisle with her? Like, no, absolutely not. Like, yeah, my grandma's dead. Rest her soul. Love you, bitch. But like, if she was acting like that in TJ Maxx, I would want someone to be like, excuse me, you can't act like that. And the way I'm talking, you're probably like, Livy, oh my God, like, what did you do? Like, what did you end up doing to grandma? Like, did you curb stomp her? No, because I'm a little bitch. I walked my ass out of that aisle. Like, I really did. She said, shoo. I said, I'm gone, bitch. I'm gone. But I was so irritated. And I was like, I really can't get into it with a grandma at TJ Maxx right now. Like, that's really just not good for my mental. That's not good for my mental. Like, fuck you, grandma. I should have fought your bitch ass. Like, what was that? What was the disrespect for? Like, why do you think you're so I'm still so angry about it. Like, I called my mom this morning and I was like, you'll never believe who the fuck pissed me off. And she's like, who was it? And I was like, some random grandmother in TJ Maxx the other day. It just really made me spiral. It really made me fucking spiral. I'm like, no, bitch, like, we can literally tell. Like, we can tell you've spiraled. Just the audacity with these old women these days. Like, the fucking audacity, grandma. Like, be so for real with yourself. Obviously, I did not fight that grandma. But let me tell you, I deeply, deeply, deeply considered it.
Am I the arsehole for telling my best friend that he deserved to get cheated on? Story time. My friend Steve has recently been having a lot of problems with his new girlfriend Amy. They got together in like August time of this year and it's been an absolute train wreck ever since. And it's not Steve that's the issue, it's Amy. So despite Amy being an absolute idiot, Steve is just so infatuated with this girl. She's cheated on Steve multiple times and shown absolutely no remorse. And every single time she cheats on him, she gives him some random story about how Steve isn't giving her what she needs and that he's not being supportive. It's getting strange. She's even said before that she finds it really, really attractive when Steve gets like super angry and jealous. And Steve is such a mug that he just gobbles it up every time. Amy says that she acts like this because she never had a father figure, so she's got mad daddy issues. And Steve, bless him, is like, I just want to be there for her and help show that men are good and she does deserve to be treated right. So do you, Steve. You deserve to be treated right. Since like September time, Amy has been seeing this other guy who we'll call Dave. Amy is 100% infatuated with Dave. Of course, Steve ain't happy about this, so he and Amy have been arguing a lot about Dave. They've been arguing a lot about this, and Amy's POV is that if Steve can't accept her for 100% of who she is, then maybe they should just break up. Maybe you should just break up anyway, but here we are. So through this blackmail, Steve accepted this. And not just that, they have now entered what Steve calls a semi-open relationship, in which Amy gets to see people she wants to see, but Steve isn't allowed to see anyone else. And this is because Amy fears that Steve will become emotionally invested in someone else. Amy, hon, hold up a mirror and look at yourself. So Steve has agreed to this, but he's been absolutely livid about it for months. But around November time, Amy started to see Dave more than she was seeing Steve. Steve just refuses, and while Steve refuses to admit it to us, Amy is basically in a full-time relationship with this Dave guy. I've put too much foundation on. At this point, she really only has Steve in her life for money and emotional support when her and Dave have arguments. One time, Steve even gave Amy £200 so she could go to an expensive restaurant on a date with Dave. So fast forward to this week and I am back in my hometown after being away for a little while. So Steve texts me on Saturday and he is like, I hate Dave. Yes, king. He was talking about how he wants to get revenge for him stealing his girl. He basically wanted to turn up to Dave's house and he wanted me to go with him since all of our other friends couldn't. And I had literally just got back the day before, so I was absolutely exhausted, so I point blank refused. I told him that Leah was just an absolute lost cause course, and there was no way I was fighting anyone for someone that I'd never met before. I told him that Amy was an absolute lost cause and there would be absolutely no way I was going to fight anyone. Steve started getting all icky and begging me to help him, saying that Amy was the absolute love of his life and he needed me to come and get her back. So I refused again and he was like, fine, I'll just go on my own. And that was the last I heard of it until the next morning. I kid you not, I woke up to like 300 messages from our friends. So long story short, Steve had actually gone over to Dave's place to go and get Amy back. But he ended up getting his arse handed to him by Dave. And to make it worse, this all went down in front of Amy. And at this point, I called Steve and I was like, listen, babe, you should probably speak to a lawyer. But he refused, since Amy asked him to not say anything. I thought this boy just needs some sort of reality check, so I told him that he had been so dumb about this whole situation. And I think this was a little bit of a trigger for him because he got quite angry. He then started turning on me and said that I was a bitch and I was a snake for not supporting him. Then called me a fake friend, which is the last cause. You don't call me a fake friend. I was done at this point. I was done trying to be Mr. Nice Guy. So I was like, listen, Steve, you kind of deserved all of this. And it kind of makes sense why Amy prefers Dave over you now. He then hung up on me and we literally haven't spoken since. So what do you think? Am I wrong here?
On January 15th, 1947, the lifeless body of a 22-year-old aspiring actress is found in Lehman Park, Los Angeles, California. A mother walking with her 2-year-old initially spotted it and thought it to be a mannequin until getting close enough to see that it was a woman's body, cut in half with a ghastly smile carved into her face. Elizabeth Short had been sliced in two, drained of blood, and some of her organs were removed then neatly placed underneath her. Pieces of flesh had been cut away from her thighs and breasts. Her stomach was full of feces, leading some to believe that she'd been forced to eat it before she was killed. The most chilling mutilations, however, were the lacerations on her face. The killer had sliced each side of her face from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating what's known as the Joker smile. Her body had also been washed clean. Nearby, detectives noticed a heel print and a cement sack with traces of blood that had presumably been used to transport her body to the vacant lot. Short's fingerprints led detectives to find out she had applied for a job as a clerk at a commissary of the U.S. Army Camps Cook back in 1943 and an arrest for underage drinking just 7 months before that. They posted her mugshot photo and the media went into a frenzy. Elizabeth Short's mother didn't learn of her daughter's death until reporters from the Los Angeles Examiner telephoned her pretending that Short had won a beauty contest. They pumped her for all the details that they could before revealing the terrible truth. Her daughter had been murdered and her corpse had been dismembered in unspeakable ways. The media began branding Short as a sexual deviant. One police report stated, this victim knew at least 50 men at the time of her death. At least 25 had been seen with her 60 days preceding her death. She was known as a teaser of men. They gave her the nickname Black Dahlia due to her reported preferences for wearing a lot of sheer black clothing. On January 21st, about a week after the body was found, the Examiner received a call from someone claiming to be the murderer. They stated that they would send Short's belongings in the mail as proof of this claim. On the 24th, the Examiner received a package with her birth certificate, photos, business cards, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen on the cover. Also, there was a letter pasted together from newspaper and magazine letter clippings that read, Los Angeles Examiner and the other Los Angeles papers, here is Dahlia's belongings letter to follow. All of the items had been wiped down with gasoline, leaving only a partial fingerprint behind on the envelope, but it was damaged during transport and never analyzed. Another letter arrives on January 26th. This time it's a handwritten note stating, turning in Wednesday, January 29th at 2 a.m. Had my fun at police. Black Dahlia Avenger. The letter included a location. Police waited at the appointed time and place, but the author never showed. Afterwards, the alleged killer sent a note made of letters cut and pasted from magazines stating, have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified. Once again, everything sent had been wiped clean with gasoline and no fingerprints were found. The letters stopped, and as time went on, the Black Dahlia case went cold. After over 70 years, it remains open. However, a couple of intriguing and chilling theories have emerged, including a man who firmly believes that his father was the murderer and has some compelling evidence. A man strongly believes that his father is the murderer in the 70-year-old Black Dahlia cold case. Shortly after his father's death in 1999, a now retired LAPD detective, Steve Hodel, was going through his dad's belongings when he noticed two photos of a woman who bore striking resemblance to the 22-year-old victim Elizabeth Short. That's when he began to investigate his own deceased father. He went through countless testimonies, archives, and witness interviews from the case. He also had a handwriting expert compare samples of his father's writing to the writing on some of the notes that were sent to the press from the alleged killer. The analysis found a strong possibility that his father's handwriting matched, but the results were not conclusive. The Black Dahlia crime scene photos show that Short's body had been cut in a manner consistent with hemocorporectomy. a medical procedure that splices the body underneath the lumbar spine. Hodell's father had been a doctor who attended medical school where this procedure was taught in the 1930s. Hodell also found a folder in his father's archives at UCLA with receipts for contracting work on his childhood home, dated a few days before the murder, for a large bag of concrete, the same brand and size found near Short's body. Hodell fact-checked the 2003 best-selling book Black Dahlia Avenger, A True Story, against the official police files and found his father, George Hodell, to be on the list of the 6 main suspects that LAPD had investigated. He was in fact so suspicious that they had bugged his home in 1950 to monitor his activities. An audio statement recorded 8:25 p.m. Woman screamed. Woman screamed again. It should be noted that the woman was not heard before the scream. Then, later that day, George Hodell was overheard telling someone, "Realized there was nothing I could do. Put a pillow over her head and cover her with a blanket." Expired 12:59. They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out. Killed her. Supposing I did kill Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. Even after this shocking revelation, hinting that he killed the Black Dahlia and also his secretary, the Black Dahlia case still hasn't been officially closed.